Rest assured you'll find grace is in your blood.
It's a little different. Oh, Trev, do we have a stand with the light? We don't like to get too pushy, but normally they give us a stand with a light. Some people, and sound, or not. How's everybody doing? Good. How about that 39 Days of July? Was that amazing? Yes, it really was. Oh crap, I can't read this. So I wanted to tell a little story. I've undertaken, well, this year we put on, oh, there it is. Psh, thank you. This year, Shawnigan Players put on 2 new plays. We put on The Tempest and Merry Wives of Windsor, and they were very well done. Did not act in them. My friend Mahalia was not in them this year, but it was interesting to sit back and watch. And we got more people out than we ever had. I think 1,400 over 12 shows. So that was great. John was in it. John, first time have you been on stage before? No. So how did you find it? You enjoyed it? Yeah, good. You fit in well, and you were very helpful too, which is great. Sometimes us actors forget there's other jobs to do, like cleaning up. Anyway, one of my favorite humans on the planet, his name is Bob Norris, and he turned 90 this year. And he's been working on a play about Robert Burns for a while, and I think he turned it into our friend Alex years ago for sort of an edit session. So as you can imagine, if you put out something like a play, you have no idea if the conversation works or the language is too stiff or fruity or whatever. So it's good to put it out there. And he went back after Al's comments and worked on it for several years, and now he's got it ready. And I think he said something like, well, I'm 90, I think it's time to do this play within the next decade. And he really is the most magical, amazing, loving human being that you'd ever care to meet. And he's also terribly funny. He's a real comic actor. He comes from opera. He was a professional opera singer, kind of a character player. I don't think very often the lead man, but kind of a character comic player. So I'm just going to read part of a script. First, I'll tell a little story, though. We were doing a called Glengarry Glen Ross by David Mamet, and it's a very fast-paced, well, it can be. It's very kind of wordy, and there's lots of swearing, and it's very challenging on some levels. It's about real estate people and kind of their inner workings. And Bob played a guy who was kind of washed up. He'd been the best, and he was kind of mentor to my character. I got to play the De Niro character, Ricky, and he's the mentor to Ricky, even though he's kind of losing it. You know, he's fading away, fading off the line. And the interesting thing about this was that Bob, because of the density of the script and because he was 83 or 84 at the time, was kind of having trouble seizing it, and sometimes he would lose it. And so one of the interesting things about theater is you develop this, you can develop this kind of elasticity where you support your other actors, and you know, if wacky things happen, you can recover. But, he'd get into these monologues, or he and I were kind of acting across from each other. It was in the original garage, and John had placed us in the round, basically. He's done lots of great theater sets for us. John's got a really great eye, great sense of these things. And Shelley and Bob and I would literally be circling each other, and you could see he would get lost on a word. And you know, your mind is kind of, you can be working along on a train of thought, and then boom, like that, you can just be somewhere else. Does this ever happen to any of you? Certainly those of us over 50. But anyway, and he would do that, and he'd say the word, but you could tell he didn't have the rest of the speech or the sentence even. And so what I noticed him doing was he would just keep repeating the word. It's like that name game you play where you go through the alphabet or something, or you just keep repeating mental clues to yourself. And so we'd walk around facing each other, kind of like a bullfight, only friendly. And I'd give him clues if I could, but really he would just return. And he had the faith in himself that he would return to the script. And so besides being a brilliant human, he's also very brave. So I'll just give you a few bits of this. We're hopefully going to do it in January. Maybe Robbie Burns Day would be the second last show or something like that. I don't know where to start. I'll just flip the pages around and we'll come up with something. Jeannie. Jeannie and Robert. Jeannie, I think you've a mighty conceit of yourself, Robert Burns. Is that a bad thing? Not if you've got anything to be conceited about. You don't think I've got anything? I'm not interested. You're a poor liar, Jeannie. Compliments are flying high tonight. You're worth a dozen giggling tar-bolting hussies, Jeannie, and well you know it. You've an honest tongue in you, and that goes with an honest heart. And you've got good looks and charm in plenty. All I ask from you is that you give me your friendship. Dramatic pause. You don't believe me, Jeannie? You don't want my friendship? Robert, you talked the bird out of the bush. Right, then, Jeannie. I'm glad we're going to be friends. The others are coming. Teacher, welcome all of you. First, I have a few rules. There's to be no horseplay of any kind. Any of you ever taught a classroom? Anybody out there? You have? You see? You know why they say this, right? No horseplay. Anybody the worse for drink will be put out immediately. Oh my God. This is Scotland, I guess. So apparently the students come to school after imbibing. Now, that's a rule that can't be broken. What's more, this is a dancing school and not a school for fornication. The girls will sit on the right side. I think it had a different meaning then. I think it actually means flirting in that sense. Wouldn't you say, Andrew? Way back then. I mean, sex could happen, but I think they were actually talking about inappropriate flirting. So if you're uncomfortable with that word, just replace it with inappropriate flirting for now. The girls will sit on the right side and the lads on the left. Partners will be chosen and a set made up, and I'll have no fighting over who partners who. You'll show what's called breeding. How many of you have displayed that lately? You must learn to hold yourself erect, head up, shoulders square, not hunched up round your ears, not too stiff. Now, hands on your hips, both hands, thumbs to the back, your back, where your spine is, or where it should be. Feel your hip bone. Go ahead, feel your hip bone. You connected? Connected to yourselves? Good. It's a very modern play. I like it. Where am I? Hey, that's better. Now then, heads up, eyes front. Don't look at your feet, even if you did wash them before you came. Never look at your feet. Look at your partner's forehead. Any of you ever had dancing lessons? Partner dancing? Andrew, Rachel, what's going on? This winter, hopefully? Okay. Do you all know your left foot from your right foot? Oh, you needn't snigger. Everybody hold out your right leg. Your right leg. It's the leg furthest from your heart. Got it? All right, then. And it carries on. So I'm excited because Bobby and I get to have a meeting tomorrow, and he's asked me to produce it, which is a nice thing that he's done to entrust me with that. And so as you can tell, I'm very excited. How about you people? Are you very excited? Who's come in? These two people. Did you come to read? Did you? Oh, great. Would you be nervous about just jumping right in? Sometimes it's better that way. You don't think too hard. Okay. Let's see. Well, I have some other victims back here. Debbie? Debbie has been here before, so she's not so nervous. You're always nervous.
Need my glasses. So I thought I'd start with a little bit of inspiration for all the writers in the room from Betsy Warland and her book called Breathing the Page. A luminous moment can contain years of lived experience. Inside the dialogue of cells and organs, we read the plots of our growing and aging bodies, the paired iambic pentameter of our brain hemispheres, eyes, ears, nostrils, arms, lungs, hands, kidneys, legs, and feet collaboratively maintain the underlying rhythm with which writing is shaped. And I'm going to continue a story I read from many months ago. The title of the story is Intimacy. For those who don't remember, which is probably just about everybody, here's a quick recap. Since her mother's death, Lynn has lost interest in sex. Her husband, David, is almost ready to give up. But she makes him a romantic dinner, and they share a kiss across the table. So when he sees her washing the dishes later, he gives it another try. He turns her to face him and tries to give her a passionate kiss. But at first, she does not respond. Lynn knows she is not welcoming, leaning back over the sink, the sharp edge of the countertop digging into the small of her back. And she knows he won't endure her lack of response long. She smooches him back, lets a low moan fill her throat, remembers when that sound only announced the most intimate moments. She feels his fat tongue in her mouth, his hot breath on her neck. A murmur reaches her ear. Shall we go upstairs? That would be nice. Let me finish here first. I'll only be a minute. After the dishes, she scrubs the sink and sweeps the floor. By the time she arrives in their bedroom and changes into her pajamas, David is propped against a stack of pillows reading. She slips between the sheets. He sets aside his book, and she feels his warmth when he rolls towards her. Tugging at her pajama bottoms, he says, I don't think you'll be needing these. She wiggles free of her bottoms. He unbuttons her top. She feels the silk glide off her shoulders, knows that it reveals the smooth, pure shape of her truest self, her vulnerability, the possibility of closeness. He nestles her breasts. The tip of his head meets the crook of her neck. She opens to the nearness of him, the stillness of him, the ease of his breath. The deep ache she's carried since her mother died goes away, and she tells herself this is how she will move on. But when he raises his head and meets her face, the ache in her chest returns heavier than before, and she looks away. Moments earlier, he'd lingered with his ear to her breast, listening to her heartbeat. He'd been determined to ease the passage, take her with him, and he'd failed because he was not strong enough to delay. It's happened so often, he no longer rushes to kindness. The yearning and the failure, the water that wells from her eyes and wets her cheeks. He doesn't recognize the man who emerges. The gentler part of him feels the secret quivers trapped in her chest, the silence of her tears. With straight arms, he hovers above her, looking down on her misery. He shakes his head. Oh God, he says, can't it ever be the two of us anymore? This is making me crazy. A chill washes over Lynn's body when David throws back the comforter and removes himself from their bed. Unclothed, he stands on the carpet, his hairy legs and his big-toed feet, the tender mouth on his hardened face. They have both started to shiver. All I need is a little affection, he says. Is that too much to ask? Her sigh is more a shudder as she hauls herself up against the headboard. She wants to stop resisting. If she doesn't let him know how important he is to her, she will lose him. yet her voice is unsure of itself. I can't control when the sadness comes, sorry. He makes no effort to cover himself. The way his arms hang loose at his sides, the way his fingers open, he is no longer holding onto anything. And it is her fault. As much as the death of her mother has broken her, the loss of their love would be worse. What is it you want? Come on, tell me. She stares at the ceiling. Under the comforter, her fingernails pinch into the flesh of her thighs. She knows the truth, has known it for months. The thought makes her sick inside. I want you to leave me alone. She hates herself for allowing such an idea to live in her brain. Of all the unwelcome thoughts she's carried around, this one is the saddest. He takes his housecoat from the chair and wraps it around himself. She is glad he will no longer be cold, that he will have some comfort. Don't tell me again it's your mother. We both know it's something more.
Holy moly, that was good. Deb, how long have you been coming out now?
Since I got
We met you upstairs when you guys moved here.
yeah, so it must be
4 years.
4 years, wow.
And
Yeah.
I've read every time,
You're amazing.
even though it scares me.
Well, way to go, way to go. I just so admire your journey and the workshops and the classes that you're doing, and it's been quite the the movement and the growth in your writing is really palpable. Wonderful work. Thank you. Mr. French, there's only one thing to do but throw you into the fire because we always hold you late. So I think giving you an early spot. Andrew French. Oh, who also hosts, John brought up a good point. He said, storytelling is well done when you can see each other. And Andrew and Rachel host an open word, spoken word, not Mike, at the Café Lévis, second Tuesday of every month, where you can see each other.
That was really nice, Deb. Yeah, so I've been trying to write shorter pieces and just like capture one moment because I think I'm having a hard time concentrating, so the longer I go, the worse off it gets. So I'll just wait till I get to a somewhat good line and then stop. So this is my experiment with that. Yeah, so just 4 short ones, and the first one's A Renewed Man's Almanac. His angel saw the vulnerable angle and took to the opening when he tried to explain. Arms akimbo, the cigarette hanging from his lips, ash on his chest before he knew the what from the how. And nowadays, when he forgets his lack of sense, he only need consult his poor left shoulder. So I have a terrible cat. And was it Saturday? Sunday. Because he has this yelp. We're trying to describe exactly what it sounds like, and it's just like terrible. So.
Is it like prolonged or is it a short?
Oh, it's prolonged and it's constant, and there's like no remedy to it. Yeah, and sometimes it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and just all over the place. But I didn't know how to describe it, so I asked Rachel. So she said it sounds like an asthmatic banshee. So that's the one line in this that is hers. It's not And his name is Mouse. So it's Mouse in the Mirror. Mouse, my cat, looks into the mirror. I just leaned against the floorboards and bookcase. And I take to wondering what impressions he has of the whole affair. If he's fascinated, watching the world reflected upon itself. But whether it's because of the bitchiness he's acquired in old age or his preference for metaphysics, he turns to me and gives me one of his high decibel yowls, like a feline cat alarm, an asthmatic banshee. And it doesn't seem like a good time to question him. It doesn't seem like an appropriate time to ask. It's not as funny when you live with him. Yeah, this one's just about a shit dream. Do you know when you wake up and it's just a shit dream? Damn. So I dreamt you went off your meds, and in spite of my counselor tricks and my scaling questions and petitions for proper decorum, and despite my attempts at pulling your arm, I couldn't reach you. And I woke up somewhere in the night, 3 time zones away, shook and shifting the sheets, hoping despite her sleeping state, my love would play the big spoon. This one's not as depressing, and it's going to be the last one. It's called the Pinko Flag. And here we are, comrades, correcting political pronouns like no one's best friend, openly resenting the rich while working the weak in their service, and on weekends waving our Pinko flags and liberating the downtrodden with our conversations and our thoughts alone. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, why do we have... I can actually see people. I can see a couple of... You guys are a bit... Why is this interesting, and is it supportive to be on stage? It's a bit nerve-wracking, and for people who haven't read before, it can be, but I kind of look at it as if I know what this audience is like, and I take it as a comfort that you're all out there, and I don't have to actually stare at you while I'm reading, but I'm supported by you. So there's different ways to look at it. And John, I don't know, Georgia says the house lights are the ugliest thing in the world. They're all this fluorescent. I
am not attached to the idea.
Oh, no. But no, it's a good idea. It's an interesting point. Amanda, you've been here before. You want to come up and read? Sure. Okay.
Okay, I've chosen tonight to read a text that I've written. I wasn't planning to, but my friend John stopped today and reminded me what was tonight, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can read this one, and I tried to tweak it a little bit and this and that. So just to put a bit of a context to it, it's a love letter to my orchid. And when I was living back east, orchids were not like as popular as they are here in houses, I guess, like potted orchids. And when I moved out here, I had a little cleaning business in Victoria as a personal assistant kind of thing. And like every other house had an orchid. And then I started talking to people about it, and you know, they kind of told me how a bit high maintenance they were, and you don't need a lot of water, not a direct light, and this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I love plants, but this is a bit much, but she's beautiful. But anyways, last year or something, my roommate came home with a thank you gift, and it was an orchid. And, well, you know, it was a gift, and I started taking care of her. And the funny thing is, I really found her more and more interesting and kind of doing research on it. And my favorite flower back east has always been the pink lily. I love the smell, the strong smell, and I just, you know, yeah, that was my heart. If somebody would give me a bouquet, I would be like, oh, pink lilies. Like, I just love pink lilies. So the story is about how I fell in love with the orchid and kind of got over the pink lily. So, yeah, so I found out that, you know, those kinds that are in pots are called phalaenopsis. And so the title of this letter is called Miss P. So here it goes. Our story began shortly after I moved to the island. I hadn't really heard about you before, but your reputation and following here on the West Coast was quite impressive. We started to cross paths many times at multiple different venues. Yes, your beauty and your exotic looks couldn't undergo without being noticed, but the truth is that my heart was already taken by her simple ways and rather quite pleased by her surprisingly low maintenance needs. I was downright devoted and loyal to her. Never would I have thought that one day I wouldn't even remember how she smelled. Reading those words is probably going to make you smile deep down inside, as I've long recognized that your greatest wish is for my soul to be completely enamored by you. Well, rest at ease, my love. It is. It truly and faithfully is. You have enlightened me so much. How could I do otherwise but to adore you? You taught me patience, perseverance, and how to care. And not the kind of care that one treats the other like one itself would like to be treated, but rather how the other wants and needs to be cared for. You taught me this subtle yet crucial distinction that very little people know, let alone practice. You taught me about love, unconditional love, the kind that is present and felt at all times, no matter what, no matter if our expectations are met or not. And that, my dear, is the hardest thing for a human being as simple as me. But you've changed me. The day I've met you, when my roommate brought you home to meet me, as I laid my eyes upon you unapologetically, but genuinely for the first time, that's when I understood. There and then, I understood what all the praising had been about. So I stood there in complete awe of you, my eyes scrutinizing every little detail of your elongate figure. Self-assured, but yet so delicate and gentle in your ways, you shamelessly let me admire you for a while. I don't know what you did to me that night, but I've never been able to look at you the same since. How could I? You have this explicit, mysterious sexual form about you that one cannot ignore. That same night, I must confess, I looked you up online. I wanted to know everything about you. Little did I know that I was going to be taken aback by what I was about to discover. You had quite the history on there. I had heard about your sophisticated ways. I had heard about your eccentricity, but had no idea that you were so liberated sexually, and your name is undoubtedly your stamp to prove it. I sat there looking at thousands of pictures of you robed in so many different flamboyant colors, and yet revealing yourself carelessly and free. Something a part of me envied, perhaps. So we started to see each other frequently. Well, every day, if I'm honest. I enjoyed your company and taking care of you. Seeing you every morning, glorious and beautiful as can be, just made my life so much brighter. But then came that day when, without any warning or preamble, you decided to shut down. You had lost your mystical, wonderful glow. I was out of sorts. Didn't know what to think or do. In despair, I asked the advice of a close friend, to which she suggested that I just let you be for a while. To continue on to continue on loving you and caring for you and hope for the best. So that's what I did for a whole year. Yes, my love, a whole year went by watching you there standing, looking sad as can be. I couldn't help but to wonder if I was the cause of your misery. I was going out of my mind, drowning in the uncertainty of not knowing if you'd ever come back to your old self, the one I had so madly fell in love with. Surrender, just surrender, my inner voice kept whispering to me. So with no other strategy left to try, I raised the white flag and simply started to accept where we were at. I still loved you like crazy, so I wasn't about to give up on us. And then rolled in that morning when I came down the stairs just to notice that you had gained a bit of your glow back. I was ecstatic. I remember it like it was yesterday. I couldn't believe my eyes. Had I witnessed a miracle? The kind of miracle that usually only happens to others? With all my excitement, I quickly grabbed you to take a closer look, and in a blink of an eye, you were broken again. I instantly backed off, begging you for forgiveness, promising that I would never make that mistake again and that I would forever honor your fragile state. So I uttered those few words along with an I love you, hoping that it would help mend the mess that I had just created. A couple weeks went by without us communicating much, but I kept loving you, once again from afar, and taking care of you to the best of my ability. And Miss P, my precious, my beautiful, that morning when I came down the stairs again and you had those flowers for me, my heart skipped a beat. In that moment, I understood the power of unconditional love and patience, and that the combinations of these two can surmount anything and everything. My love, you are so incredibly complex in the most magnificent ways, and for that, I will treasure you for as long as you will let me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. We have some new people wondering about whether they want to sit in, so it's probably a good time to have some tea. And I think for the new folks and you guys, one of the things I like about this is that someone is somewhat alone on stage at the lights, but yet kind of held by the audience. And over the years, it's helped us for people to share intimate things, and that support is needed. You know, that you're listening. And so feel free after the tea if you want to come in and sit down. That's what it is. It's a listening night, and you'll hear some original works, and you might hear some works by, I always have trouble describing it. People might read works from their favorite authors. So it's kind of a mixture of the two. And so we're going to have tea, and then we'll come back, and we'll have some more readings. Thank you so much. Lovely work.
what's it to you? Who gets to hear my plea? Just myself in I, that's what I'm trying to be. Shh. Are you looking for a fallen one? Far from a tree? Or throw your own red carpet out? Be your own celebrity. There's nothing like you being back while we're jay. Yeah, I'm looking it over. Let's see you single fly saying, hey, 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 hey. Come on. A little bit of affection in the right direction. Oh, I can see your complexion in my eye reflection. Oh, and all I'm taking on. So what you worry about? Hear you screaming, shout. I'm flying on, I'm flying on. So what you worry about? Let's hear you screaming, shout. I'm flying on, and I thought you should know. I thought you should know. Shh. What's it to you? So what's it to you? Who gets to hear my plea? Just myself in I, that's what I'm trying to be. And be. Hey. A little bit of affection in the right direction. Oh, I can see your complexion in my eye reflection. Oh, yeah, oh, I'm taking on. So what you worried about? Hear you screaming, shout. I'm flying along, I'm flying along. What you worried about? Hear you screaming, shout. I'm flying along, and I thought you should know. I thought you should know. I thought you should know. Oh, oh, I thought you should know. So don't be so stuck in your ways. You gotta find the right time and place for you. I gotta be ready for you. Where did it go wrong? What happened to me? Why'd you have to go? You couldn't let it be. You wanted it all, but got nothing from me. Then you came along, set me free. Revolution of a generation, bubble wrap kids. We're all just singing loudly, singing, let us live. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Somebody's cracking the whip.
I don't know why you don't
chips, that won't do well yet. Gotta munch it quietly. We had during the theater thing, our director was, I think for 3 or 4 years, disturbed by popcorn in plastic bags, and finally, our solution was to buy the cups for the patrons, or for the vendor actually, and now popcorn comes out of the cups better, which is good. I don't know about you folks, but I usually, when you go to pick up a novel, I look at the first page, I go into the middle, read a couple paragraphs, see if it's going to work at all. And anyway, this is the first scene of Bobby's play. Bobby's play about Robbie. That's 3, Gibby. Just 2 more to go. You can do it. I'll try, Robbie. Well done, Gibby. Now take your time. Only 1 to go. I did it. I did it. All 5. Good for you. That's enough now. Auntie? Yes, Robbie. Were there really ghosts? Yes, there were ghosts. Did you ever see one, Auntie? I did, Robbie. I can remember the day as if it were yesterday. My Uncle Patty was drowned and off the Kirkwald shore in a big storm, and his body was never found. It must have been washed out to sea. He was a good man, my Uncle Patty. And his eldest son, my cousin Jock, was very upset, the poor man. Why was he so upset? Because he hadn't been able to give his father a decent Christian burial. That's a very important thing for a son to see done for his own father. Ah, well, it must have preyed on my Uncle Patty's mind. Anyway, some of us were coming up from the shore after gathering seaweed when I spied my uncle coming over the hill to meet us. Well, it wasn't exactly my Uncle Patty, since he was drowned, but you couldn't have told the difference. Oh, we got such a fright. I dropped my creel and ran with the others hard on my heels, squealing and yelling. We didn't say anything that night. We were so frightened. But the next night, the same thing happened at the same time at the same spot. I tell you, we never stopped till we were home and had blurted out the whole story. My cousin Jock was sent for, and he said he would come with us the next night, for a ghost seldom gives more than a third appearance. And sure enough, there was his father's ghost, as plain as if he were alive. Jock told us to leave. What was said between them will never be known, but it must have been something terrible. Poor Jock went home to his bed, and his hair turned white, and by the 3rd night he was dead. Whoa. That's quite the first scene. Carol, would you like to come up? Are you feeling fit and ready? Welcome, Carol, a new reader to our midst.
Hello. Well, I was saying to my friend Marcelo after Amanda's reading that I think I need to go and buy an orchid now. It was beautiful. So I didn't really know what to come here with. I just brought a few journals and tagged some poetry, so I hope you like it. I want to savor you, and I do. With every word, with every thought. And every time we talk, it's like the sweetest little pomegranate seed fruit. It may be small, but it packs a punch. It may not be a big, juicy strawberry to drool over, but it's just what I need. No extra fluff and words, just a moment with you, however it fits between us, as it is. And that way there's space and certainty of many more. Abundance, for there's many seed to one pomegranate fruit. And I never loved strawberries anyway. Strawberries don't compare to the love affair I have with pomegranate. Some call me a perfectionist, but I think I just strive to soak all the juice from every experience, even you. And so I'm going to savor you. my friend Marcella can attest to this, that sometimes I'll draw something. It's a very simple drawing, and it just throws me into some poetry. And so here I started with a teardrop, and in the teardrop is an eye. So that, and drop. I drop. So, I drop. I drop all the preconceived perspectives and knowledges gained. I drop all the must-dos, feel like I need tos. I drop all the negative self-examination of myself and my choices, my needs, and the attending to my needs. I drop always feeling I need to be better, more loving. I drop these twistings of the mind, ideas of what should be or what is. I drop worry, I drop fear, I drop shame, I drop guilt. I drop the lesser visions for myself. I wash away the film over my eyes with tears of pure loving justice. To drop, to be, to drop. Eye drops. Like the rains of diamond tears clearing me, strengthening me to see real truth and beauty. I eat the darkness with my light. I drop the grip. I release the grit. I fall into the arms of bliss. Better yet, I become, have always been, the arms of bliss. Is that 5 minutes? No? All right. Lift me twisting, dancing. Dancing, dancing, yes, take me dancing. Dancing in my nakedness of beingness, of wholeness. Because here, I'm feeling whole again. And all I needed was me. All I need is me. All that I am is me. All is me. So please, me, believe that the moment I need is already perfectly be. And all the words I speak, be too, brilliantly. Man, 5 minutes is hard to fill. What can I say about it all? So many pages left blank. I was ready to give you all. Future memories gone blank. Full stop. Slungshot stillness into a deep space. And now I'm just watching stars go by. Because I realize I'm not in charge. I'm not in control of anyone. I will not use my will past this point of stillness, point of love, point of infinite evolution. I will not be like the men you call friends, feeding their egos of the meek, of those that seek unconsciously. I choose to let them be free. Full stop. So go, be free.
Thank you for being brave. John, another John Mott Stephen, another new reader to it.
That's all right.
Come on up, John. No, we're going to try it. If you don't like it, it's okay.
The lights are
Oh.
fine as they are. Thanks.
Oh.
Good evening, everyone. Have to try the mic. This is the. Is that good? Okay. Get in there. There we go. I was interested that Bill has introduced a play related to Robbie Burns, or one of the pieces that I thought I would read this evening is a poem by Burns. Many of you are familiar with it, likely. It's To a Mouse, and it's lines that he wrote on turning up the nest of a field mouse with his plow, November 1785, so 230 years ago. Burns wrote this poem. Some of the language in this might just go past you. Don't worry about it. It just what I'd suggest is just allow the poem to flow over you, by you. A key stanza in this poem will give you the what I feel is the core spirit of it. That's where Burns has written, "I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal." I think we can think that those lines could be addressed to many of the living creatures that share the planet with us these days. I'd like to comment also that Scottish friends assure me that Scots is not a dialect of the English language. It's an independently evolved language in itself. We slicket cowran timorous beastie a panics in the breastie. The need nae start a wassy hasty wi' bicken and brattle. I would be laith to rin and chase thee wi' murder and pattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt the whiles, but thou maun thieve. What then, poor beastie, thou maun live? A daemonicker and a thrave's a small request. I'd get a blessing with a lave and never missed. Thy wee bit hoosey too in ruin, its silly walls the winds are strewn, and Nathan now to big anew on a foggage green. And bleak December's winds ensuing, baith snell and keen. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winter coming fast, and cosy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till crash the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap of leaves and stibble has cost thee money a weary nibble. Now thou's turned out for all thy trouble, but house or hold, to thole the winter's sleety dribble and cranach cold. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, and proving foresight may be vain. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, and proving foresight may be vain. The best laid plans o' mice and men gang after gley, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy. But thou art blessed compared wi' me, the present only toucheth thee. But och, I backward cast my e'e on prospects drear, and forward, though I canna see, I guess and fear. I too have no idea when 5 minutes is going to be by. The time just dissolves away in the midst of these things. This poem called Dragonfly pretends to be about a dragonfly, and in some ways it is. The concepts of it, the words of it, the descriptions of it seem to be about a dragonfly. That's sort of at a conceptual level. In my heart, this poem is actually about a woman. And I realized that after I'd written it. There's a woman who, with whom I shared a workspace for a number of years, and when we first met, there was a spirit of delight and joy in our meeting, which was really quite wonderful. But something happened, I have no idea what. And there was nothing more. And she gave notice confidentially to our supervisor and moved far away after a number of years, and quite mysteriously. No idea what happened there. I used to, until a few months ago, I lived on a small farm in a little cabin up the valley, and my interest really was in being outside, so I had no reason to close the doors when the weather was fair, and so the doors were always open. I had sort of beaded curtains hanging in the doorways to try to prevent birds and such from coming in, but occasionally a dragonfly would come in, and I would see this beautiful, delicate creature banging against the windows, trying to escape. So this poem happened. Summer sunshine garden, heat of afternoon. A glimmer resolves to iridescent subtle color, at rest in gentle motion. Light sings softly, high octaves, delicate shimmering spectra near, gainst deep sounding in depths of forest green and shadow. And sometimes this to me gentle amazement, but among insects a fearsome dragon surely, will come by chance inside and risk its beautiful, fragile wings against my window. And I, so gently, begging its trust, cup this wonder in my softest of hands, so delicately, thrilling to its vibrant vitality, with heartfelt thanks for the honor, its presence in my home in my hands, carry it to the garden. And open, to reveal in close regard its massive body, 1,000 eyes dark shining, delicate legs positioning for launch, wondrous long wings testing freedom regained. Then, in slow courage, rises from my hands and soars across summer sunshine garden, iridescent glimmer, my admiration attending its return to silent distance away. Is that 5 minutes yet? Yes, no, what? Yep. Try to make it a shorty. Well, interestingly, this one's about another woman. Sort of. Running with the horses. One day near the end of us, she said, "You used to run with the horses. You don't do that anymore." It's true. Some days I came home to the farm, tired from work in town. I climbed the cedar rail fence, was joyful in the sweet sun grass, the summer air and light, and walked with my heart in my eyes through the fields, out to where the horses grazed and lay, sleepy in the dense air of late afternoon. Sometimes I carried oats or carrots to feel their tough and agile lips, scrubbing and tickling my hands, and I loved them for their dark strength, their color, and their smell. Sometimes I climbed across a broad, strong back, and in the lazy sun wandered the innocent day that smelled of meadows and horses under the wide blue sky. If I couldn't get beside one enough to hop on, they'd rear and toss their heads and tails and kick away through the rough grass and brush, and I'd let a loud, long yelp and canter with the horses across the field. Wild, running with the horses, leaping through the brush, running high and low over the rising and falling ground, my long legs strong from years of riding, almost keeping up, enough at least so I could play at herding, flanking, rounding them off. And when they had left me safe behind, they stood alert, heads up, ears up, eyes bright atop their long dark necks, waiting to see what next. And I would flop, run out and happy, on the field among them, my face in the grass, smelling sweet earth and weeds, rough ground cool against my chest. Our play dissolved, The horses slowly then drifted to dreams. They lowered their heads and ears. They found things to eat in the grass. The silence of the summer afternoon flowed in again, for the red wing and the white throat, the wind in the grass and the grasshopper's song. I used to run with the horses and play with the spirit of spring, moon rising over the fields. But now the silence of night flows in. Earth's bounty sleeps in the sweet cooling air. Thank you. Okay. Oops. Thank you, sir. Just clear this stuff out of the way for the next person.
And how close do you live in town? You're like right in there? It does afford a different lifestyle. John made his first appearance on stage with us this summer, and he said partly due in fact to that he lived in town, because when he lived way out and without a vehicle, wasn't able to go to rehearsals and such. So we're very glad that you're in town and you're available. Rumor has it that Rachel has something to read. Oh, maybe. Not just a stellar painter and pencil artist. Oh, sorry, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Come up anyway.
Stage fright. So let's see how this goes. Today I was talking to, we have an Alexa speaker system in the store, and I was trying to tell her, you know, to power down for the end of the day, but it had been quite a day, and you have to speak quite loudly, and I heard a tremor in my voice. I thought, oh no, I wish I didn't tell anyone I was going to read tonight, because it might not happen. But I guess here I am. And I also don't have a very long poem. And I also only have one, so yeah, you're not getting your money's worth. Yeah.
We'll change that.
Yeah. I also noticed when you've been coming up here, I've been hearing everyone breathing. Some good breathing up here tonight. It's reminded me to actually breathe. Good breathing, everybody. Yeah. So I'm going to read a poem by Margaret Atwood. And I told Andrew, and he was like, ugh. But I'm going to read it anyway, because I actually saved it to read last summer, and then I was so excited it was summer, I forgot, but I think it's pretty fitting. It's called Late August. This is the plum season. The nights blue and distended, the moon hazed. This is the season of peaches with their lush lobed bulbs that glow in the dusk. I'd need from the cold pond, bladed and urgent as new grass. Now it's the crickets that say ripe, ripe, slurred in the darkness, while the plums, dripping on the lawn outside our window, burst with a sound like thick syrup, muffled and slow. The air is still warm. Flesh moves over flesh. There is no hurry.
Alias Grace, Andrew, you read that? No? It's a good one. I think that novel, and I forgave her the whole middle part of her career between that one that we know so well. I can't remember the name of early on. What's that? Right. And the rest of the stuff. I mean, we all have our favorite authors. My friend Jimmy, who's a jazz guitarist, had a great story. Early in his career, he was playing as the opener for Margaret reading. And he was kind of sitting in a corner on a chair doing his jazz guitar. And then before he knew it, as he was finishing, Margaret swanned into the room with her whole entourage and fans and sat right next to him and he was trapped for the entire reading. Maybe a good or a bad thing, but for him it was excruciating, apparently. But she has quite the charisma, I think. Good work, Margaret. See, David, also new. Wow, 3 new readers tonight. That's very exciting. Thank you, folks. Come on up.
So this is the first time I've come here, and my plan was to just lay low and just suss it out and see what it's like. But I had a strong request to participate. So this is the only thing I had on my phone. I spent about 12 years overseas as a humanitarian aid worker, and this was one of the things that happened to me. And I have to take my glasses off. It was the rainy season. At the best of times, not the moment to be out walking in the hills of Burundi. And this was not the best of times. A brutal civil war was underway, displacing tens of thousands of people and killing countless others. Between the torrential downpours and the fighting, it was hard to find a moment for a celebration, like the opening of the gravity-fed system whose construction I had just overseen, which would supply water to 15,000 people. The ceremonial group of about 20 included 3 burgomeisters, or mayors, of the area served by the system. The title burgomeister is a holdover from Belgian colonial times, and to judge by how people treated them, it was a pretty big deal that they had joined us. They seemed to see the opening of a project by an international aid organization as a pretty big deal too. They were dressed in their finest, 2 of them wearing white traditional robes. The plan was to start at the top of the system at the protected water spring and work our way down to where people were waiting for the ribbon cutting and the speeches. As I stood for a moment by the reservoir, the normally expansive view across Lake Tanganyika to the mountains of Congo was obscured by low cloud and mist. I had a bad feeling about all this. We started down the hill with the 3 burgomeisters in front, followed by me and the rest of the party. It had only just stopped raining, so the path was a mess of ankle-deep mud. At first, I managed to avoid the worst of it by walking on the harder ground beside the trail. But as we descended, the overgrowth of jungle became thicker, and I had to walk on the path. The trail grew gradually steeper until, rounding a sharp turn, we were faced with what seemed like an almost sheer drop-off. I edged my way down behind the 3 in the lead, making little baby steps in the mud. It seemed to be working until, quite spectacularly, it wasn't. I slipped. And this wasn't one of those, whoa, I almost fell kind of slips. No, this was more like a mime doing an exaggerated impression of someone stepping on a banana peel. Boom, I was on my back and headed downhill fast. Wham, I took out the first burgomeister. Wham, wham, the other 2 went down in quick succession. I know this sounds bad, but it was not yet a complete disaster. Amazingly, the 3 of them had not fallen in the mud, but were now all half-seated on top of me, sliding downhill. We were essentially a bobsled team, with me as the sled. For a tiny, hopeful moment, I thought that it might turn out okay. And by okay, I mean for the dignitaries. Because for me, at that moment, sliding downhill on my back in the mud with 3 grown men sitting on my chest, it was somewhat less than okay. Now, I have studied viscous fluid flow at the graduate level, and I still cannot understand how mud was filling my underwear through my cargo pants. So, aside from the fact that I was basically getting a mud enema, it seemed to be going rather smoothly. And then we hit the tree root. And you know, I'm still convinced that we might have negotiated it if they had all leaned together one way and then quickly back the other way at just the right moment. But unfortunately, this was our first run as a team down this track. There was no warm-up to iron out the kinks. The near side runner of the sled, that is to say, my left buttock, hit the tree root first, and after that, everyone was for themselves. I lost track of the bobsled team. In fact, at this point, I was no longer a bobsled. It was more like, what's that other event? The one where you're going head first on your stomach? Skeleton. Yeah, now I was doing the skeleton. I kept my mouth and eyes closed, but could not prevent mud from piling up my nose. Mercifully, this didn't last long. The trail leveled out, and I plowed into the puddle of Burgomeisters that had reached the bottom before me. Clambering heavily to my feet, I saw the rest of our party standing stunned, a good 20 meters above us on the trail. The 3 crumpled figures in front of me still hadn't moved, and for a second I thought, holy crap, I've killed the Burgomeisters. Then they slowly peeled themselves out of the mud and stood up. Everyone appeared to be unhurt, shaken and filthy, but unhurt. My assistant Ferdinand appeared and, reaching into his breast pocket, pulled out a single white tissue and held it out weakly, not sure who to offer it to. In that moment, with the 3 of us as dirty as if we had just been mud wrestling, his well-meaning offer struck us as hilarious. The 4 of us, and soon the whole group, were crying with laughter. Fighting to get his breath back, the head Burgomeister took my hand. Monsieur Johnson, let us continue down the hill to the taps, where, God willing, there will be water to wash with. But I insist, you first.
Well, we're glad you were urged on. Very well done, David. Oh, gosh, that reminds me of a story. It's one of our favorite stories over the years. And Keith, you know the one I mean. I don't want you to tell it tonight, but it just very much reminded me of Keith's early exploits with young ladies. Did you feel some parallels going on there? No. Yes. He says, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just smiling. Come on up. No pressure, though. Yes, that's a hard act to follow. Keith, your experience, though, you've been here many times. Well done, David.
That is a hard act to follow. This brings to an end the politically correct portion of our programming. I'm sometimes like to come and share an anecdote or what I will call a vignette from my life. So I'm going to do that tonight. I won't provide any real context other than to say that I, as always, try to be precise and truthful about what may have happened, taken place, word for word, and nuance for nuance. I'll just say that I'll speak the words as I heard them, and the only thing I'll say in my defense, or to qualify a little bit, is say that by presenting it, I do intend some irony. So I was living with a former girlfriend, and at one point, her aunt and uncle were coming from the U.S. I had never met them. I think they were from North Carolina. And Dave, it was his name, Uncle Dave, and Marlene, his wife. And my girlfriend at the time, I'll call her Susan. That'll do. And so Dave and Marlene had a son in his late 20s who at the time was either finished or well on the way through gender transformation. And or as they were calling it in their family, a sex change. And Dave was an ex-military man. And Susan said to me a number of times before they arrived, whatever you do, they were coming just for dinner for one evening and then going to her parents. She said, whatever you do, don't mention the sex change. Dave is apparently not handling it well at all. So they arrived. Dave was not tall, about maybe 5'6" or so, and quite stocky, with a large head and quite a severe brush cut, blonde hair with large blue eyes that really, in a pronounced way, kind of bugged out. And it gave him just a super intensity at all times. So we were at dinner. We were just pretty much finished dinner. I avoided using the word sex or change in any context at all, together or separately. And we're pretty much done, and Dave said, well, Keith, what do you say we let the girls finish up here? You and I take a cognac out on the deck. So we're on the deck for about 15 seconds, and Dave says, so Keith, I guess Susan has told you we lost a son. And I said, wow, Dave, yeah, she did mention the situation. How's that been for you? He said, Keith, I tell you, it blows the hair right off your ass. It just blows it right off. You know, Keith, I try hard. But this goddamn AC/DC stuff is just fucking crazy. So about an hour later, we were back inside. We were sitting at the table again, drinking red wine and brandy. And Marlene, the aunt, I guess emboldened by booze, decided to say how wonderful she thought it was that the schools were currently delving a lot deeper into sex education and particularly gender issues. It was like she decided to pull the pin on the hand grenade that was Dave. And he went off. Jesus Christ, Marlene. Keith, Susan, Marlene has heard this, but I would like you to hear it as well. I was 12 years old in the yard playing football with some friends. My dad called me in. Out of the blue, he called me in. He said, David, son, do you know about the birds and the bees? I said, no, sir, I don't think so. He said, son, look, as you know, David, you have got you a back bum and a front bum. Now that back bum, that's the shit bum, son. Now, David, that is all that God intended that one for. Son, this is important. There is no other intention for that one. And now, David, you've got that front bum, the pea bum. Son, this is the crucial part. That's also the one that makes the babies. Good? Right. You're going back out to your game now, son. Attaboy. Marlene, Keith, Susan, I ask you, is there one goddamn shred more information than that any child will ever need? I don't believe so. Keith, it's like I said, it just blows the hair right off. Thank you.
Blows the hair right off. I'm going to be saying that over and over again as I work tomorrow. That'll keep me going. That'll keep me going all day long. I'm going to use it several times. I hope you don't mind. Various people come around. We have John Hadfield to read, and have I missed anybody else? Gray, did you change your mind? No? Sorry, not Greg. Greg. Oh. Greg. No, you didn't change your mind. No. And Gray, you didn't change your mind. Okay. Anybody else I missed? John, come on up, young feller. Oh, such a lovely night. Thank you all. Wow.
That makes two hard acts to follow. I never know what I'm going to do because I want to see what everybody else does. And and then try to do something that sort of fits in. So I'm going to read, I had a whole bunch of stuff. Deb and I were talking about reading excerpts, and I thought I might try that. And every time I pulled the word count down, it just kept getting bigger. So I can't do that. This is 760 words, so start. Dr. Propel and the antidepressants. Caution, prescribing these drugs may cause a loss of sense of humor. After taking antidepressants for 18 years, I finally weaned myself off. I thought it prudent to see my doctor to get checked out. After all, how many people in the world had been eating this drug for so long? Wasn't I worthy of a study for long-term side effects? As usual, I had to sit and wait, looking at stupid old magazines. Not much scenery in the waiting room, if you know what I mean. And just when you give up, this beautiful creature pushes the door open and saunters through your visual field, and the hormones start raging. She sat down near me, and I couldn't stop myself surreptitiously checking her out. There was something a little odd about her, very feminine, yet something. A few moments later, another woman comes in and sits right beside her. I watch them interact for a bit, and I sigh to myself, lesbian. What is it about some lesbians that is so attractive? The sound of the nurse calling out my name shatters my reverie, and I follow her to the examination room. She drops my medical records on the desk with a thump. Now I sit and wait there till the door is pushed open, and my doctor of 20 years walks in. What can I do for you, he asks, picking up my file. Renew your prescription? Before I can answer, he sees something in his notes. Oh, he says, you've stopped taking them. He glances up at me and asks, so what are you doing here? What do you want from me? It was like he was my drug dealer, and since I had quit, he had no use for me. He also seemed a tad fearful, as if he felt guilty. After all, he was the one who told me I would be on this medication for the rest of my life. It's like vitamins for you, he had said. I said, I thought maybe the drug company might be interested in what happened to me. You know, I should be examined in the interests of science. He visibly relaxed. He was off the hook. He looked at his watch and then started asking questions. I told him the soon-to-be ex-wife and I had separated, and I said it was going well, but as a new single father having custody of the kids, I found it a bit challenging to keep all the balls in the air. What with a history of chronic pain, depression, family of origin issues, for which I was in counseling, I was somewhat scared shitless to go off my meds at the time. But being rid of the wife had started a chain reaction of good things. I had begun playing music in a band, and through a strange series of musical events found a procedure called the Alexander Technique, which ended my chronic pain. No wife, no pain, maybe no need for antidepressants, I thought, so I weaned myself off over a period of 5 months. He asked me if I had noticed any unusual side effects. I thought of my encounter in the waiting room, and just to see if he was paying attention, I told him I had in fact noticed one disturbing thing. I was sexually attracted to lesbians. He didn't bat an eye and just kept writing and asking more questions. Later in the examination, he got confused when we were talking about women or something, and he said, wait, when you say she, are you referring to your lesbian lover? And I go, my what? And I said, I had already forgotten I'd said that. You didn't write that down, did you? Yes, he says, I write everything down. I said, well, then write this down. That was a fucking joke. He looks at me and says, I wondered how that could work. I says, well, it can't, I said. That's just the point. That's the basis of our $1 million lawsuit. I'll follow those nasty people at Pfizer. You write the report, I'll cut you in. He looks at me blankly. I checked to make sure he didn't write that down, made a mental note to change doctors. I haven't revisited him or antidepressants since. It's been 18 years. I've learned to live with my attractions. I think the Reader's Digest got it right. Humor is the best medicine.
John and I have ongoing repartee. Wow, thank you so much. That was a lovely evening. And for you new readers, I hope you'll be encouraged to come back. You're always welcome, and you can share whatever you like, really. It's a safe place, hopefully. And we often go out for appies and beer, or not beer, or juice, or whatever you like, to the brew pub afterwards if you want to continue chatting and share kind of a round table thing. You're welcome to come. And appies are, in fact, 2 for 1. So thank you for coming out, and thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Trevor. John was here somewhere. He snuck in quietly. Longevity John. And I hope you'll come out and support lots of shows at this wonderful place and help keep it open. So make sure you pick up a schedule on your way out. Thank you all for your contributions. Good night.